morning, noon, evening or night, depending when you're watching this video. My name is Legend and welcome back to World of Tanks and the first episode of Magnificent Maveuvers, which is very comparable to the Omnipotent Onslaught, Strong Strongholds, Close Clan Wars, you name it. The main difference between Strongholds and Maneuvers is that Maneuvers has more elements from the Clan Wars campaign within it, with all the added rewards. But generally it quite plays out the same as your 7 versus 7 tier 10 strongholds. And for this battle on mines we of course are trying to take the hill, but quickly we realize that the enemy team have other plans. By not spotting them going up the hill, I immediately go forwards in order to go towards the cap to chase them. Well, they most likely are all going towards the cap. And by doing that we are catching out the 60 TP, which is kind of slower than the rest of his team. And after we have pretty much dealt with the 60 TP, it's kind of a close call to reset the cap on time before it fully gets capped out. Luckily, one of our medium tanks is quick on the draw and also drives into the cap to alleviate this time pressure. And from that moment we somehow have a HP advantage and can drive straight into it and focus the enemy down one by one. I do make quite a poor peek right there, getting killed in the process, but well, hey, we still got the advantage now though. The most important thing is that we correctly utilize the focus fire, and by doing that is maneuvering ourselves towards the target that we are focusing. At certain points it does work, the correct focus fire is now being enacted right here. However, after that... What was that? However, after that 260 died, the focus fire gets a bit mixed up. A new target is being marked, however another target is actually fired at by 3 out of the 5 teammates. But with a lucky fire, a few shots into the actual marked target gets rid of him, and from here on it is pretty much smooth sailing. So a very quick battle where the enemy team puts themselves in quite a poor position where they might have to cap out, showing that going full on towards the cap circle isn't always the best strategy to do, especially on small maps like mines. They might have capped out if they stayed hidden long enough, but well, they didn't know for sure if they could actually fully out-cap the cap before one of our tanks got in there as well. Therefore, they felt the need to peek and counter our advances, but that left them vulnerable for the resets. So if you go for the cap, don't do it on a small map and make sure that you have an excellent cap defense and have a very strong position to counter the enemy advance. And also it helps if your team doesn't have one tank that is lacking in speed, falling behind and being easily picked off in the push of the enemy team, who are quickly realizes your plans. And that realization that I have very quickly on, that decision to go immediately full on forwards without stopping was the initial cause of victory. The other cause was one of our medium tanks that was able to reach the cap to alleviate the final bit of cap pressure that we have. And finally, of course, some good focus fire. A bunch of our teams just keeps driving forward and being all able to fire at the same target. Sometimes you're stuck at a location where you cannot do this, but most of the time you can, so you should do it and get rid of the enemy teams one by one as fast as possible. So with such a short game, of course, I got another one. Again on the mines and with the similar setup and the similar ideas, going for the hill and checking if the enemy team is not going for the cap once again. However, this time they actually aren't all going for the cap and getting quite a defensive positioning on right there. But quickly enough we do realize that the cap pressure is on, with 3 other enemy tanks that also are going towards the cap, meaning that we once again need to rush this flank while we still outnumber the enemy tanks right here on the way towards the hill, and once again go for that cap reset afterwards. Although the moment that I realized it and tried to set up my team to actually make this push takes a little bit more time than I want, and I am the one that eventually initiates this push, going forwards and actually getting one shot in and ignoring the rest of the enemy tanks in order to get towards the cap as soon as possible, because once again the cap pressure is getting close once again, but also once again one of our mediums is blocking the cap pressure by driving in the cap circle. And right here I'm sacrificing myself towards this 60 TP in order to distract them as long as possible. In the approach I already lost half of my hit points, so I think if I'm going to continue further forwards in the open, I might get picked off quite easily. Getting down here where only the 60 TP can engage me, he eventually does kill me, but it took him quite some time to do so. In the meantime, my team was able to once again fully overwhelm the cap circle, further going forwards and ignoring the 60 TP and 705A who were farther away from the cap, being able to quickly focus fire the enemies inside the cap circle, and now afterwards, after they all killed them, they can easily pick off the final few enemy tanks with the number advantage. And let's appreciate the ram of the IS-7 right there against the 60 TP, which causes the 62P to miss his shot. Just a final great moment to finish off another great battle, great performance of our team right here. Now with no apparent lack of focus firing, unlike the previous battle where it slacked off a little bit. So this battle can best be described in us splitting the enemy team 2 times. Once at the start, where we knew that a big part of the enemy team were around the cap, away from the road up the hill, so we initially pushed on those enemy tanks, but we ignored some of them at our approach towards the cap, driving straight past them and focusing the enemy tanks in the cap circle, splitting up the enemy team again. Now going for the second part of the enemy team that was currently capping. And that was quite easy by ignoring the 705A at the back and me buying some time distracting the enemy 60 TP. And that led my team to take on the other fragment of the enemy team that were inside of the cap circle, splitting them once again. And after that part is finished off, like I said, the final few enemy tanks that are left behind are easily to overwhelm with the number advantage that we were able to get out of our excellent focus fire and focus on the particular fragments of the enemy team. And with that, that's the end of this episode. 2 quick replays to showcase what maneuvers can bring. So like I said before, the main difference between maneuvers and strongholds is that maneuvers has more elements of the clan wars. However, those clan wars elements have actually no impact on the matches itself. The furthest you can get is that the teams may not be occupied by meta tanks. However, if you want to have a good performance, you might reset your progression points in order to still play those meta tanks, which we actually did in these replays. So if both teams are doing that, it actually isn't really that different from your typical strongholds battles. But it had some added features and bonuses, so of course it's more popular generally among the clan members, so that's the main difference. But battle-wise, it plays out pretty much the same as strongholds, but still with some interesting features that I recorded and wanted to share. So hopefully you enjoyed it, learned a bit from it, and I will see you next time. Laters!